Welcome to this presentation, everyone. We are delighted to showcase consumer involvement in CP-Achieve as we are just over the halfway point mark. Next slide, please, Margaret. Margaret and I will guide you through this presentation, but in particular, we would like to warmly welcome Carolyn, who is new to her role in CP-Achieve as another consumer coordinator. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you very much, Sev.
Thanks, Sev. This is just an overview of the presentation. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about then and now. 2020 was when we spoke to you last about this particular topic. And then Sev will really talk about the important thing, which is the actual journeys and experiences of some of our consumer partners. And it's here I'd like to acknowledge Joan Gaines, who started with us in 2019 and went off to greener pastures earlier this year, but her deep involvement in many of these activities. So back in 2020, when we spoke to you last, we had a vision to involve consumers, and by consumers we mean people with cerebral palsy, in particular adolescents and young adults, and their families in all of CP-Achieve's activities, our research, our working groups, our meetings and so on. And we wanted to involve consumers in an authentic manner. So that means that the voices of the consumers involved with us were actually heard, actually influenced our research and made a difference, made our cerebral palsy research better together. We also really wanted consumers to benefit by that involvement. So it was a two-way benefit rather than just researchers and research benefiting. Here is a research cycle where we generally tend to start at the top in deciding what to research, deciding how we're going to do research, actually carrying it out, telling people what the results are so that that research can make a difference, and then knowing what to research next. So we really aim to have consumers involved in all stages of this research cycle, including right at the beginning, to know the best things we should be researching, what's important, and to set the direction in a positive way. So back then, when we spoke last about showcasing consumer involvement back in 2020, we were able to talk about some of our achievements. We had a detailed involvement plan, which covered a number of things we wanted to achieve, and particularly our values around that. We had constituted a young adult advisory group called CP Unite, of this amazing group of young adults with cerebral palsy who work with us closely still and into the future, and a mentor program to support them in their role if they chose to work with a mentor. We also presented some plans to you at that point, and those plans included having a parent advisory group, so the perspectives of parents and also potentially parents whose young people couldn't necessarily speak for themselves. We talked about having an adolescent advisory group, which we also have now, called CP Voice, and a mentor program to support those young people. So big tick for all of those activities that we planned back in 2020. We also planned and have many young people with cerebral palsy who are involved in individual projects, sitting on research teams as a co-investigator, giving presentations, making decisions, so deeply immersed in those projects. And now we've hit 2022, I would like to just briefly mention some of the achievements since 2020 that we feel very pleased with ourselves about. And that is an incredibly successful symposium last year, where young people with cerebral palsy were involved in lots of different ways as guest speakers, on panels, in chat rooms, and we got some really great feedback about how consumers and researchers and clinicians worked together and presented together at that symposium. We're at the beginning stages, as Millie and Izzy have said, and this is really founded on Megan's vision and their early work, an advisory group of people with complex communication needs. And we've got great plans to really make a difference in that area. We've also had 2 young ACU students work with us evaluating the mentor program. We'll get those results in February, so watch this space, and we'll use that information to improve, refine the mentor program. And of course, we have plans despite all of those achievements. So our plans going forward are a diversity plan, which Carolyn is spearheading and which aims to increase the diversity of the backgrounds and experiences of people with cerebral palsy and their families in our consumer group. We are in the very early stages of working with Bella White, a young woman with cerebral palsy who is an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, to have what may be a reference group, but it will be up to the people we partner with to decide what that looks like. And so it's been a pleasure to be part of that journey and also to highlight those things for you today. And now I'd like to pass back to you, Sev, for the second part of this presentation.
Thank you, Margaret. Margaret has done a great job in giving an overview of the then and now, and I would like to take you all on, I guess, what it actually looks like, the journey and experience that our consumers and research partners have. Next slide, please. So to start off, we asked some of our advisors and research partners to reflect on their involvement and experiences with CP-Achieve. As Margaret mentioned, we are very lucky to have multiple people with CP and their families involved. The reflections will come from CP Unite, as it was one of the first advisory groups established within CP-Achieve in 2020. And so the 2 main themes that came out of these reflections are what advisors have made an impact on and where they feel they've impacted on the most, and what involvement means to them. Next slide, please, Margaret. So when it comes to what advisors have made an impact on, lived experience is the main theme. So they believe their lived experience has made an impact on projects like Transition to Adulthood, the mental health projects, and we'd really like to highlight Rowan here, who has secured a Churchill Fellowship to complement his work within CP-Achieve. So congratulations, Rowan. Also, advocacy was a big theme for cerebral palsy and disability in general. Lived experience and what is important. Enhancing accessibility, so working on making documents inclusive and accessible, written in a language that's plain or easy English for everyone. And as you can see on the bottom of the screen, they are direct quotes from our advisory teams on their experience. Next slide, please, Margaret. So when it comes to what involvement means to advisors, I guess this has made the most impact for us, being able to get all this feedback. But they are very proud to make a difference. They really enjoy the connections within the groups and developing their confidence and skills. And if I can read just one of the direct quotes on the slide, it would be that CP-Achieve has changed my life. I am now more willing to connect, learn, and advocate for others through every aspect of my involvement. And we are very proud to hear that. So we have achieved what we hoped in terms of consumers benefiting from being involved, as well as our researchers benefiting from lived experience. We are really looking forward to our continued collaborations, and we'd like to thank you for joining us in this presentation today. And now we have some time for questions, and we also have our emails on the screen, so you can contact either Margaret or myself. And please connect with our social media platforms or contact the main CP-Achieve email address for any other inquiries. On a final note to that, we do have a webinar coming up on the 30th of November, and that's going to be presented by Professor Kurt Graham.